Question 1. The performance metrics show a significant decline in student retention rates for the business administration program over the last 2 academic years. Which of the following represents the most appropriate initial response for the academic administration of Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA? Option A. Propose a reduction in the academic rigor and grading standards for the business administration program to make it more accessible and thus improve student completion rates. Option B. Initiate a comprehensive review of the business administration curriculum, teaching methodologies, and student support services to identify potential contributing factors to the declining retention. Option C. Increase the marketing budget for the business administration program to attract a larger pool of prospective students, assuming higher enrollment will naturally improve retention figures. Option D. Issue a statement attributing the retention decline primarily to external economic factors affecting student commitment and focus. Correct answer is B. Initiate a comprehensive review of the business administration curriculum, teaching methodologies, and student support services to identify potential contributing factors to the declining retention. Explanation. The performance metrics show a concerning trend in student retention rates for specific courses at Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an administrator to interpret data, identify potential systemic issues, and propose solutions that align with the college's mission and regulatory obligations, all while ensuring fairness and equity for students. The pressure to demonstrate improvement and justify resource allocation adds further complexity. The correct approach involves a thorough, data-driven investigation into the root causes of the declining retention rates. This includes analyzing student demographics, course content, teaching methodologies, and available support services. The justification for this approach lies in the principle of continuous improvement, a core tenet of educational quality assurance frameworks often mandated by regulatory bodies overseeing higher education. Specifically, it aligns with the need for institutions to demonstrate accountability for student outcomes and to proactively address factors that may impede academic success. This methodical approach ensures that interventions are targeted, effective, and compliant with any institutional policies or external accreditation standards related to student support and academic program evaluation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on increasing marketing efforts to attract more students, without addressing the underlying retention issues, fails to meet regulatory expectations for academic program quality and student success. This approach neglects the institution's responsibility to provide a supportive learning environment and may lead to a cycle of high enrollment followed by high attrition, which is often scrutinized by accrediting bodies and can negatively impact the college's reputation and funding. Another incorrect approach, which involves simply reducing the difficulty of the courses to improve retention, is ethically problematic and likely violates academic integrity standards. This undermines the value of the qualification awarded by Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA and fails to prepare students adequately for future academic or professional endeavors. Regulatory frameworks typically emphasize maintaining rigorous academic standards while providing appropriate support, not lowering them. Finally, an approach that involves blaming external factors without internal review, such as attributing low retention solely to student motivation or economic conditions, demonstrates a lack of institutional responsibility. While external factors can play a role, educational institutions are expected to implement strategies to mitigate these challenges and support student success. This reactive stance fails to comply with the proactive and evidence-based approach to quality management expected by educational regulators. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured problem-solving framework. 1. Data gathering and analysis. Collect comprehensive data related to the issue. 2. Root cause identification. Employ analytical tools to pinpoint the underlying causes. 3. Solution development. Brainstorm and evaluate potential interventions based on evidence and best practices. 4. Implementation and monitoring. Execute chosen solutions and track their effectiveness. 5. Review and adaptation. Continuously assess outcomes and adjust strategies as needed. This iterative process ensures that decisions are informed, ethical, and aligned with regulatory and institutional objectives. Question 2. The audit findings indicate a discrepancy in the documentation submitted by an applicant for the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam, specifically concerning the validation of a prerequisite academic certificate. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Immediately disqualify the applicant from the entrance examination due to the unverified status of their prerequisite academic certificate. Option B. Initiate a formal review process to verify the authenticity and validity of the applicant's certificate against the college's admission requirements and internal policies, documenting all steps taken. Option C. Advise the applicant to obtain a new certificate from their previous institution without further investigation into the original document's validity. Option D. Discuss the applicant's documentation issue with other candidates who have successfully submitted their prerequisite certificates to gauge their experiences. The correct answer is B. Initiate a formal review process to verify the authenticity and validity of the applicant's certificate against the college's admission requirements and internal policies, documenting all steps taken. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the applicant to navigate potential conflicts between academic integrity, institutional policy, and the ethical obligations of an educational institution. The Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam, like any academic institution, is bound by its own internal regulations and potentially broader educational guidelines that govern admissions processes and the handling of applicant information. The core challenge lies in ensuring fairness and transparency while respecting the confidentiality of applicant data and adhering to the college's established procedures for addressing discrepancies. The correct approach involves a thorough, documented review of the applicant's submitted documentation against the established admission criteria and the college's internal policies. This approach is correct because it prioritizes adherence to the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA regulatory framework. Specifically, it aligns with the principle of due process in admissions, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated consistently and fairly based on predefined criteria. By initiating a formal review process, the college upholds its commitment to academic integrity and its own established procedures for handling potential irregularities, thereby safeguarding the credibility of the entrance examination and the institution. This systematic approach minimizes the risk of arbitrary decisions and ensures that any subsequent actions are based on evidence and established policy. An incorrect approach that involves immediately rejecting the applicant based on a single discrepancy without further investigation fails to uphold the principles of fairness and due process. This would violate the spirit, if not the letter, of the college's admission regulations, which likely mandate a structured evaluation process. Another incorrect approach, such as discussing the discrepancy with other applicants or external parties, would constitute a severe breach of confidentiality and data privacy, violating ethical standards and potentially specific regulations governing the handling of personal information within educational institutions. Furthermore, an approach that involves overlooking the discrepancy without any form of verification or documentation would undermine the integrity of the admissions process and could lead to the admission of unqualified candidates, thereby compromising the academic standards of Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to understanding and applying the specific regulatory framework of the institution. This includes familiarizing oneself with the college's admission policies, ethical guidelines, and any relevant educational legislation. When faced with a discrepancy, the professional should first seek to clarify the situation through established internal procedures, ensuring all actions are documented. Confidentiality and fairness must be paramount throughout the process. If there is ambiguity, seeking guidance from supervisors or relevant administrative departments within Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA is crucial to ensure compliance and ethical conduct. Question 3. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of unauthorized access to applicant data during the admissions review period. A faculty member, not directly involved in admissions, but needing to assess the applicant pool for potential research collaborations, requests a list of all applicants who indicated an interest in a specific program, including their contact information. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions office to take? Option A. Inform the faculty member that applicant data is confidential and cannot be shared under any circumstances, regardless of the requester's affiliation. Option B. Provide a summary of the applicant pool's general interests without including any personal or identifiable information. Option C. Verify the faculty member's request against the college's data access policy, confirm their legitimate research interest, and if authorized by policy, provide the requested information after obtaining necessary approvals. Option D. Immediately provide the faculty member with the list of applicants, as faculty members are generally trusted within the institution. The correct answer is C. Verify the faculty member's request against the college's data access policy, confirm their legitimate research interest, and if authorized by policy, provide the requested information after obtaining necessary approvals. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect student privacy and ensure data integrity. The Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam framework, like most educational institutions, operates under strict guidelines regarding the handling of sensitive applicant data. A hasty or unauthorized release of information could lead to severe reputational damage, legal repercussions, and a breach of trust with prospective students. The correct approach involves a systematic and authorized process for data retrieval and dissemination. This means adhering strictly to the college's internal policies and any relevant data protection regulations that govern educational institutions in Brazil. Specifically, it requires verifying the legitimacy of the request, ensuring it aligns with established procedures for accessing applicant data, and obtaining appropriate authorization before any information is shared. This upholds the principles of data privacy and security, which are paramount in maintaining the integrity of the admissions process and the college's reputation. An incorrect approach would be to immediately provide the requested information without proper verification. This fails to acknowledge the sensitive nature of applicant data and bypasses established protocols designed to prevent unauthorized access and misuse. Such an action would violate the implicit trust placed in the college to safeguard personal information and could expose the institution to legal liabilities related to data breaches. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the request entirely. While this might seem like a safe option to avoid potential breaches, it fails to address a legitimate inquiry, assuming the request is from an authorized source, and can lead to operational inefficiencies or misunderstandings. It does not demonstrate a commitment to transparency or a willingness to engage with authorized stakeholders in a timely manner. A third incorrect approach is to provide incomplete or inaccurate information. This undermines the credibility of the admissions process and could lead to incorrect decisions being made based on flawed data. It also reflects a lack of diligence and attention to detail, which are essential qualities for any professional involved in educational administration. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the institution's policies and regulatory environment. Professionals should always: 1. Identify the nature of the request and the data involved. 2. Determine the source and legitimacy of the request. 3. Consult relevant internal policies and external regulations regarding data access and privacy. 4. Seek appropriate authorization if necessary. 5. Respond in a timely, accurate, and compliant manner. If unsure, escalating the request to a supervisor or the relevant compliance department is the most prudent course of action. Question 4. Governance review demonstrates that a prominent local official has contacted the admissions committee, expressing strong support for a particular candidate and requesting that their application be given special consideration for the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam, implying that the candidate's admission is highly desirable for community relations. The committee is now deliberating on how to respond to this request, ensuring adherence to the exam's regulatory framework and ethical standards. Option A. Politely decline to consider the request, stating that the examination process is strictly confidential and no external influence can be tolerated without further investigation into the candidate's qualifications. Option B. Conduct an impartial review of the candidate's application against the established admission criteria, consulting the FAC FAMA official policy on candidate appeals and external inquiries, and document the process and outcome meticulously. Option C. Initiate a review that focuses on how admitting this candidate might benefit the college's public image, potentially overlooking some of the standard admission requirements to accommodate the request. Option D. Immediately inform the official that the candidate's application will be prioritized and granted special consideration due to their community connections, as this aligns with fostering positive relationships. The correct answer is B. Conduct an impartial review of the candidate's application against the established admission criteria, consulting the FAC FAMA official policy on candidate appeals and external inquiries, and document the process and outcome meticulously. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and responding to external pressures that could compromise fairness. The Aldete Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam's regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines are paramount. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all candidates are evaluated equitably, adhering strictly to the established examination protocols. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective review of the examination process and the specific concerns raised, without yielding to undue influence. This aligns with the ethical imperative of fairness and the regulatory requirement to uphold the integrity of the entrance examination. Specifically, it necessitates consulting the FAC FAMA internal regulations regarding appeals and candidate grievances, ensuring that any investigation is conducted impartially and in accordance with established procedures. The focus must remain on verifiable evidence and established criteria for admission, as outlined in the college's admission policies. An incorrect approach would be to immediately grant special consideration or alter admission criteria based solely on the influence of a prominent figure. This action would violate the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants and could lead to accusations of favoritism, undermining the credibility of the entire examination process. Such a deviation from established procedures would contravene the regulatory framework, designed to ensure a transparent and merit-based selection. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the concerns outright, without any form of investigation. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to address potential irregularities, which could have serious repercussions if a genuine procedural error or unfairness is later discovered. It also fails to uphold the ethical obligation to provide a fair hearing for any legitimate concerns raised by candidates or their representatives. A further incorrect approach is to initiate a review that is biased or predetermined to favor a particular outcome. This compromises the objectivity required in any assessment or review process and directly violates the principles of fairness and impartiality mandated by the examination's regulatory framework. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the specific regulatory framework governing the examination. 2. Identifying the nature of the concern or pressure. 3. Consulting relevant internal policies and procedures for handling such matters. 4. Gathering objective evidence and conducting an impartial review. 5. Making a decision based strictly on established criteria and regulatory compliance. 6. Communicating the decision and the rationale clearly and transparently in accordance with college guidelines. Question 5. The assessment process reveals that a candidate for the Aldete Alves College FAC FAMA has submitted an application that is technically incomplete in one minor aspect, yet demonstrates exceptional academic potential and extracurricular achievements that significantly exceed the typical profile of admitted students. The admissions committee is aware of the candidate's strong potential to contribute to the college community. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the Aldete Alves College FAC FAMA Admissions Committee? Option A. Contact the candidate's personal reference to inquire about the missing documentation and potentially use this information to influence the admission decision. Option B. Request the candidate to submit the missing documentation promptly, while proceeding with the evaluation of the complete parts of the application, and making a final decision only after all required materials are received and reviewed according to established criteria. Option C. Reject the candidate's application outright due to the incomplete submission, adhering strictly to the rule that all applications must be fully complete at the time of submission. Option D. Admit the candidate immediately based on their exceptional potential, overlooking the minor missing documentation to secure a high-caliber student. The correct answer is B. Request the candidate to submit the missing documentation promptly, while proceeding with the evaluation of the complete parts of the application, and making a final decision only after all required materials are received and reviewed according to established criteria. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in educational institutions, ensuring fairness and transparency in the evaluation of candidates for limited admission slots. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the institution's need to select qualified students with the ethical obligation to treat all applicants equitably and to adhere strictly to the established admission criteria. Misjudgments can lead to legal challenges, reputational damage, and a loss of public trust in the integrity of the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA selection process. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the candidate's application against the published admission criteria, seeking clarification on any ambiguities, and documenting the decision-making process meticulously. This aligns with the principles of fairness and due process inherent in any selection process governed by institutional regulations. Specifically, adherence to the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA stated admission policies and guidelines ensures that decisions are objective, consistent, and defensible. The regulatory framework for university admissions, as implicitly defined by the exam's context, mandates that all candidates are assessed based on the same predetermined standards, preventing arbitrary or discriminatory outcomes. An incorrect approach would be to deviate from the published admission criteria based on external pressures or subjective interpretations. For instance, prioritizing a candidate solely because they have a personal connection to a faculty member, without that connection being a formally recognized admission factor, violates the principle of equal opportunity and the integrity of the selection process. This constitutes an ethical failure and a breach of regulatory compliance, as it introduces bias and undermines the merit-based evaluation system. Another incorrect approach would be to make a decision without adequate documentation or justification. This lack of transparency makes it impossible to verify the fairness of the decision and leaves the institution vulnerable to accusations of impropriety. It fails to uphold the professional standard of accountability. Professionals involved in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes adherence to established policies, objective assessment, and thorough documentation. This involves understanding the specific regulations and guidelines of Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA, applying them consistently to all applicants, and maintaining a clear record of the evaluation and decision-making process. When faced with ambiguous situations, seeking guidance from senior admissions officers or relevant committees, and consulting the official policy documents is crucial to ensure decisions are both compliant and ethically sound. Question 6. Operational review demonstrates that a student, Maria Silva, who is nearing graduation, has expressed significant distress regarding a failing grade in a core subject. She claims extenuating personal circumstances prevented her from adequately preparing for the final examination, and she believes her overall performance throughout the semester warrants a passing grade. The college is under pressure to meet its annual enrollment targets. Which of the following actions best represents the appropriate response by the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA administration? Option A. Inform Maria Silva that her grade is final and that no further discussion will be entertained, as the examination results are conclusive. Option B. Offer Maria Silva a supplementary examination immediately without reviewing her prior performance or the circumstances she has described. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of Maria Silva's academic record, including her performance in all coursework and the final examination, and apply the college's established appeals and special consideration policies. Option D. Immediately assign Maria Silva a passing grade to ensure she graduates and to maintain positive student relations, given the college's enrollment targets. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive review of Maria Silva's academic record, including her performance in all coursework and the final examination, and apply the college's established appeals and special consideration policies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the college's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create an environment where ethical boundaries are tested. Careful judgment is required to uphold the college's standards while supporting student success. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation into the student's academic performance and any alleged irregularities. This includes reviewing the student's submitted work, examination records, and any relevant institutional policies. The college must then apply its established disciplinary procedures fairly and consistently, ensuring that any decision is based on evidence and adheres to the principles of natural justice. This upholds the regulatory framework of Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA by ensuring that academic standards are maintained and that all students are assessed equitably, preventing the erosion of academic credibility. An incorrect approach that involves immediately granting the student a passing grade without proper investigation fails to uphold academic integrity. This bypasses established assessment procedures and could be seen as preferential treatment, violating the principle of fairness to other students. Another incorrect approach, which is to dismiss the student's concerns outright without any review, demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to address potential issues within the assessment process. This could lead to a perception of institutional indifference and a disregard for student welfare. A third incorrect approach, which is to impose a punitive measure without a clear basis in policy or evidence, would be arbitrary and could lead to legal challenges and damage to the college's reputation. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the relevant institutional policies and regulatory guidelines governing academic assessment and student conduct. They should then gather all pertinent information objectively, conduct a fair and thorough investigation, and apply established procedures consistently. Decision-making should be guided by principles of fairness, transparency, and academic integrity, ensuring that all actions are defensible and aligned with the college's mission and regulatory obligations. Question 7. Upon reviewing the examination materials for the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam, a proctor notices a candidate exhibiting signs of distress and appearing to struggle significantly with a particular question. The proctor knows the candidate personally and is aware of their strong desire to be admitted. The proctor is considering offering a subtle hint or rephrasing the question to help the candidate overcome their difficulty. Option A. The proctor should rephrase the question in simpler terms, assuming that the candidate's difficulty is due to comprehension rather than knowledge, and that this will allow for a more accurate assessment of their understanding. Option B. The proctor should offer a subtle hint to the candidate, believing that a small amount of guidance will not significantly impact the overall assessment and will help the candidate demonstrate their potential. Option C. The proctor should approach the candidate and offer words of encouragement, suggesting they move on to the next question if they are stuck, as this will help manage their anxiety and improve their overall performance. Option D. The proctor should strictly adhere to the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam regulations, refraining from any form of assistance or rephrasing, and instead, if appropriate and within the scope of their duties, discreetly observe the candidate for any signs of cheating or distress that might require reporting to the examination authorities. The correct answer is D. The proctor should strictly adhere to the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam regulations, refraining from any form of assistance or rephrasing, and instead, if appropriate and within the scope of their duties, discreetly observe the candidate for any signs of cheating or distress that might require reporting to the examination authorities. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and ensure a fair assessment process for all candidates applying to Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the desire to assist a candidate with the absolute necessity of adhering to the established entrance examination regulations and guidelines. Misinterpreting or circumventing these rules, even with good intentions, can lead to accusations of unfair advantage, compromise the credibility of the examination, and potentially violate the principles of equal opportunity. The correct approach involves a strict adherence to the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance examination regulations. This means recognizing that the examination is designed to assess a candidate's knowledge and aptitude independently. Providing any form of unauthorized assistance, such as hints or direct answers, directly contravenes the spirit and letter of the examination rules, which implicitly demand an unassisted performance. This approach upholds the principle of fairness and ensures that all candidates are evaluated on their own merits, as stipulated by the college's admission policies. An incorrect approach would be to provide direct assistance or hints to the candidate. This action, while potentially stemming from a desire to help, constitutes a breach of academic integrity. It creates an unfair advantage for the candidate receiving the assistance, undermining the validity of the examination results for all other applicants. Such an action could also lead to disciplinary measures against the individual providing the assistance and potentially invalidate the candidate's application. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the request and not respond at all. While this avoids direct violation, it fails to uphold the professional responsibility to guide individuals towards the correct channels for information or to clarify the boundaries of acceptable conduct during an examination. A responsible professional would at least clarify the rules or direct the candidate to the appropriate authority for clarification. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant regulations and ethical codes. When faced with a request that appears to skirt the boundaries of acceptable conduct, a professional should first consult the specific rules governing the situation. If the request is clearly outside these rules, the professional should politely but firmly decline, explaining the rationale based on the regulations. If there is ambiguity, seeking clarification from a supervisor or the examination board is the appropriate course of action. The paramount consideration is always the integrity of the process and the fairness to all participants. Question 8. Quality control measures reveal that a member of the Aldete Alves College FAC FAMA Admissions Committee has a close relative applying for admission. This committee member is responsible for reviewing applications and participating in the final selection process. What is the most appropriate course of action to maintain the integrity of the admissions process according to best practices in academic admissions within the Brazilian regulatory framework? Option A. The committee member should immediately disclose the familial relationship to the admissions committee chair and recuse themselves from all aspects of the applicant's evaluation and selection process, ensuring the applicant is reviewed by other committee members. Option B. The committee member should proceed with the evaluation, confident in their ability to remain objective and make a fair decision based solely on the applicant's merits. Option C. The committee member should continue their involvement but make a note of the relationship in their personal evaluation, assuming this transparency is sufficient. Option D. The committee member should discreetly advocate for the applicant to other committee members, highlighting their strengths without explicitly mentioning the familial connection. The correct answer is A. The committee member should immediately disclose the familial relationship to the admissions committee chair and recuse themselves from all aspects of the applicant's evaluation and selection process, ensuring the applicant is reviewed by other committee members. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate potential conflicts of interest and maintain academic integrity within the specific regulatory framework of Aldete Alves College FAC FAMA. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring that the admissions process is fair, objective, and free from undue influence, adhering strictly to the college's established guidelines and any relevant educational regulations governing admissions in Brazil. Careful judgment is required to uphold ethical standards and prevent any perception of favoritism or bias. The correct approach involves a transparent and documented process of recusal and disclosure. This means immediately informing the relevant admissions committee or supervisory body about the familial relationship, and stepping away from any decision-making processes that could directly or indirectly affect the applicant's admission. This upholds best professional practice by prioritizing impartiality and adhering to ethical principles of conflict of interest management, as likely stipulated in FAC FAMA internal policies and general Brazilian educational law concerning fairness in admissions. An incorrect approach of proceeding with the evaluation without disclosure would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. It violates principles of transparency and fairness, potentially leading to a compromised admissions decision and undermining the credibility of the college. This could contravene FAC FAMA Code of Conduct and broader regulations that mandate impartial evaluation of all candidates. Another incorrect approach, that of subtly influencing other committee members, represents a severe breach of professional ethics and academic integrity. This is not only a conflict of interest, but also an act of deception, directly violating the trust placed in the individual by the institution and the applicant pool. It would likely contravene FAC FAMA disciplinary policies and any regulations prohibiting undue influence in admissions. A further incorrect approach, attempting to justify the evaluation by claiming objectivity despite the relationship, fails to acknowledge the inherent perception of bias. Even if the individual believes they can remain impartial, the appearance of impropriety is sufficient to warrant recusal in such situations to maintain public trust and adhere to ethical standards of conflict avoidance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of institutional policies on conflicts of interest, a commitment to transparency, and a proactive approach to disclosure. When a potential conflict arises, the professional should err on the side of caution, seeking guidance from supervisors or relevant committees to ensure adherence to ethical and regulatory requirements. The focus should always be on safeguarding the integrity of the process and maintaining the trust of all stakeholders. Question 9. The evaluation methodology shows a discrepancy in a candidate's submitted academic records, raising concerns about potential misrepresentation. The admissions committee must decide how to proceed. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA Admissions Committee? Option A. Forward the case directly to the college's legal department for immediate disciplinary action against the candidate. Option B. Immediately reject the candidate's application based on the initial suspicion of misrepresentation. Option C. Request further clarification and documentation from the candidate regarding the discrepancy, while also initiating an internal review of the submitted materials against college admission standards. Option D. Ignore the discrepancy and proceed with the evaluation of the candidate's application, as if no issue was found. The correct answer is B. Immediately reject the candidate's application based on the initial suspicion of misrepresentation. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a scenario where a student's academic integrity is questioned, presenting a significant professional challenge for the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA Admissions Committee. The core of the challenge lies in balancing fairness to the student with the college's commitment to upholding academic standards and the integrity of its admissions process. A thorough and impartial investigation is paramount to avoid both wrongful accusations and the admission of unqualified or dishonest candidates. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented review of the evidence, ensuring the student has an opportunity to respond to any allegation. This aligns with principles of natural justice and due process, which are fundamental in academic and professional settings. Specifically, FAC FAMA internal regulations, as outlined in its student handbook and admissions policy, would mandate a fair hearing process. This includes gathering all relevant documentation, interviewing witnesses if necessary, and providing the student with a clear understanding of the concerns and a chance to present their perspective. The decision must be based on objective evidence and adhere to established college procedures, ensuring transparency and accountability. An incorrect approach would be to make a decision based on hearsay or incomplete information. This fails to meet the standard of due process and could lead to an unjust outcome for the student. Furthermore, acting without a clear, documented procedure or failing to provide the student with an opportunity to be heard violates ethical principles of fairness and could expose the college to reputational damage and potential appeals. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the concerns outright without proper investigation, which compromises the college's commitment to academic integrity and could allow unqualified students to gain admission. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes evidence-based reasoning, adherence to established policies and procedures, and the principles of fairness and due process. This involves 1. Clearly defining the issue, 2. Gathering all relevant facts and evidence, 3. Consulting applicable regulations and policies, 4. Considering all perspectives, 5. Making a reasoned decision based on the evidence and policies, and 6. Documenting the entire process and decision. Question 10. Examination of the data shows that the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA is experiencing lower than desired applicant numbers for its upcoming entrance exam. To address this, the admissions team is considering various strategies for promotional materials. Which of the following strategies best aligns with ethical and regulatory best practices for educational institutions? Option A. Emphasize the college's most successful alumni stories and highlight the exceptional achievements of a few recent graduates to showcase the potential for student success. Option B. Develop promotional content that implies a higher level of faculty expertise and research output than currently exists to position the college as a leader in its fields. Option C. Create a campaign that suggests a significantly higher graduate placement rate than historical data indicates, focusing on aspirational language to attract a larger applicant pool. Option D. Present a balanced overview of program strengths, faculty qualifications, and realistic graduate employment statistics, ensuring all claims are verifiable and transparent. The correct answer is A. Emphasize the college's most successful alumni stories and highlight the exceptional achievements of a few recent graduates to showcase the potential for student success. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the desire to present a positive and appealing image of the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA to prospective students and the ethical obligation to provide accurate and transparent information. Misrepresenting program outcomes or faculty qualifications, even with the intention of attracting more applicants, constitutes a breach of trust and can mislead students in their crucial decision-making process. The regulatory framework governing educational institutions, particularly in the context of entrance exams and admissions, emphasizes honesty and integrity in all communications. The correct approach involves a commitment to factual representation and transparency. This means ensuring that all promotional materials, including those used in the entrance exam context, accurately reflect the college's programs, faculty credentials, and historical student success rates. Adherence to the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA internal guidelines on admissions and marketing, as well as any overarching educational regulations that mandate truthful advertising, is paramount. This approach builds credibility and fosters an environment where students can make informed choices based on reality, not exaggeration. An incorrect approach that inflates success statistics or misrepresents faculty expertise is ethically unsound and likely violates regulations concerning educational advertising and consumer protection. Such actions can lead to disciplinary action against the institution and individuals involved, as well as potential legal repercussions. Misleading prospective students about the quality of education or the qualifications of instructors erodes public trust in the institution and undermines the integrity of the admissions process. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on highlighting the most exceptional student achievements without providing context or acknowledging average outcomes is also misleading. While showcasing success is important, omitting the broader picture can create unrealistic expectations. This failure to provide a balanced perspective can lead to student dissatisfaction and a perception of being misled. The professional decision-making process in such situations should begin with a thorough understanding of the relevant ethical codes and regulatory requirements. Professionals must prioritize accuracy and honesty in all communications. When faced with the temptation to embellish information for recruitment purposes, they should critically evaluate the potential harm to prospective students and the institution's reputation. A robust internal review process for all marketing and admissions materials, involving individuals with a strong understanding of both the college's offerings and regulatory compliance, is essential. This ensures that all information presented is not only appealing, but also truthful and defensible. Question 11. Assessment of a student's ethical approach to preparing for the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam when they inquire about obtaining an unfair advantage. Option A. Offer general study tips that are not specific to the exam content but might indirectly help the student perform better. Option B. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any information or assistance that could compromise the integrity of the entrance exam, explaining that all candidates must be assessed on their own merit. Option C. Agree to discreetly provide some hints during the exam to help the student answer difficult questions. Option D. Suggest that the student focus on their preparation and that the outcome will reflect their efforts without directly addressing the request for an unfair advantage. The correct answer is B. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any information or assistance that could compromise the integrity of the entrance exam, explaining that all candidates must be assessed on their own merit. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the college's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on an entrance exam, especially for a competitive program like those at Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA, can lead students to consider unethical shortcuts. The core of the challenge lies in upholding the principles of honesty and meritocracy while acknowledging the student's aspirations. The correct approach involves a direct and ethical refusal to provide any unauthorized assistance. This aligns with the fundamental ethical obligations of any educational institution and its representatives to maintain the integrity of its admissions process. Specifically, it adheres to the implicit and explicit guidelines of Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA, which would undoubtedly prioritize fair and unbiased evaluation of all candidates. Providing any form of assistance, even seemingly minor, would constitute a breach of trust and a violation of academic integrity principles, potentially leading to severe consequences for both the student and the individual offering the help. An incorrect approach of providing hints or tips about the exam content, even if framed as general advice, is ethically flawed. This action, while not a direct answer, still compromises the fairness of the examination by giving one student an unfair advantage over others who have prepared solely through legitimate means. It undermines the principle of equal opportunity and the validity of the assessment. Another incorrect approach, offering to look over the student's answers during the exam, is a direct violation of exam proctoring rules and academic dishonesty policies. This constitutes active participation in cheating, which is a severe ethical and regulatory breach. It not only disadvantages other candidates, but also fundamentally devalues the qualification being sought. A third incorrect approach, suggesting the student try their best and see what happens, without addressing the underlying request for assistance, is also problematic. While it avoids direct unethical action, it fails to uphold the responsibility to guide students towards ethical conduct. It implicitly condones the student's intent to seek an unfair advantage by not actively discouraging it or offering appropriate guidance on legitimate preparation methods. Professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Recognizing the ethical dilemma and the potential for pressure. 2. Clearly understanding the college's policies and ethical guidelines regarding admissions and academic integrity. 3. Directly and politely refusing any request that compromises fairness or integrity. 4. Offering guidance on legitimate preparation methods or directing the student to appropriate academic support resources. 5. Maintaining professional boundaries and upholding the institution's reputation. Question 12. Which approach would be most appropriate for a candidate preparing for the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam to ensure ethical and regulatory compliance? Option A. Completing the exam independently, relying solely on personal knowledge and preparation, and adhering strictly to all exam instructions. Option B. Collaborating with other candidates to share study materials and discuss potential exam questions beforehand to ensure everyone is well prepared. Option C. Discreetly inquiring about the exam content from individuals who have previously taken the test or have insider information. Option D. Offering a donation to the college's development fund in exchange for a guaranteed admission spot. The correct answer is A. Completing the exam independently, relying solely on personal knowledge and preparation, and adhering strictly to all exam instructions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate the ethical and regulatory landscape of academic integrity within the context of a university entrance exam. The pressure to perform well, coupled with the desire to gain an advantage, can lead to the temptation to engage in dishonest practices. Careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of fairness and meritocracy that underpin the admissions process. The correct approach involves a commitment to honesty and adherence to the established rules and guidelines of the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam. This means completing the exam independently, without seeking or providing unauthorized assistance, and ensuring that all submitted work is original. This approach is ethically sound, as it respects the principles of fairness and equal opportunity for all candidates. It is also regulatorily compliant with the implicit and explicit rules governing university entrance examinations, which are designed to assess a candidate's genuine knowledge and aptitude. Upholding academic integrity is paramount to maintaining the credibility and value of the qualification awarded by the institution. An incorrect approach that involves seeking or sharing exam content before or during the examination period would constitute a serious breach of academic integrity and exam regulations. This would undermine the fairness of the assessment process, disadvantaging honest candidates and potentially admitting individuals who have not demonstrated their true capabilities. Such an action would be ethically reprehensible and would violate the spirit and letter of the exam's governing framework. Another incorrect approach, such as attempting to bribe an invigilator or administrator for preferential treatment or access to exam materials, is not only a violation of academic integrity, but also a criminal offense in many jurisdictions. This action corrupts the entire admissions process, demonstrating a profound lack of ethical character and a disregard for the law. It would lead to severe penalties, including disqualification from the exam and potential legal repercussions. A further incorrect approach, such as fabricating personal achievements or qualifications to enhance one's application, is a form of academic dishonesty. This misrepresentation deceives the admissions committee and misrepresents the candidate's suitability for the program. It violates the ethical obligation to be truthful in all aspects of the application process and undermines the trust placed in applicants. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the ethical principles of honesty, fairness, and integrity. Candidates must be aware of the specific rules and regulations governing the examination. When faced with a choice, they should always opt for the path that upholds these principles, even if it seems more difficult or less advantageous in the short term. This involves self-reflection, considering the potential consequences of their actions, and prioritizing long-term ethical standing over immediate gains. Question 13. Implementation of the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance examination is underway. During the examination, a student discreetly signals to you, the invigilator, and whispers, "I'm completely stuck on this question. Can you just give me a hint or tell me the answer? I really need to pass." What is the most appropriate course of action for the invigilator? Option A. Discreetly provide the student with a subtle hint to help them answer the question, believing that a little assistance will not significantly impact the overall outcome. Option B. Ignore the student's request and continue monitoring the room, hoping they will stop asking for help. Option C. Politely but firmly refuse the student's request, explaining that providing answers or hints is against college policy and compromises the integrity of the examination. Option D. Immediately escort the student out of the examination hall and report them for attempted cheating. The correct answer is C. Politely but firmly refuse the student's request, explaining that providing answers or hints is against college policy and compromises the integrity of the examination. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the academic integrity standards of Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA. The pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead students to seek shortcuts, but upholding the fairness and validity of the examination process is paramount. Careful judgment is required to balance empathy for the student's situation with the non-negotiable ethical obligation to prevent academic misconduct. The correct approach involves a direct and ethical refusal of the student's request, coupled with an explanation of the college's policies and the importance of academic integrity. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principles of honesty, fairness, and upholding institutional rules. By refusing to provide answers or assistance, the invigilator upholds the integrity of the entrance exam, ensuring that all candidates are assessed on their own merit. This also serves as a deterrent against future attempts at academic dishonesty and reinforces the college's commitment to a fair evaluation process, as expected by the regulatory framework governing educational institutions. An incorrect approach of providing the answers, even with the intention of helping a struggling student, constitutes academic dishonesty and a breach of trust. This undermines the entire purpose of the entrance examination, rendering the results invalid and unfair to other candidates who prepared honestly. It also violates the explicit guidelines of Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA regarding exam conduct and academic integrity. Another incorrect approach of ignoring the student's request without any response or guidance is also professionally unacceptable. While it avoids direct complicity in cheating, it fails to address the student's inappropriate request and does not uphold the college's responsibility to maintain a controlled and ethical examination environment. It misses an opportunity to educate the student on proper conduct and the consequences of academic dishonesty. A further incorrect approach of reporting the student to the authorities without first attempting to de-escalate the situation or understand the student's intent could be seen as overly punitive and may not align with the college's internal disciplinary procedures, which often involve a graduated response. While reporting misconduct is necessary, the initial response should be measured and in line with established protocols. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Recognizing the ethical dilemma and the potential for academic misconduct. 2. Consulting relevant institutional policies and guidelines regarding exam conduct and academic integrity. 3. Responding directly and ethically to the student's request, clearly stating the boundaries and expectations. 4. Documenting the incident and the response. 5. Following established college procedures for reporting and addressing academic misconduct if it persists or is confirmed. Question 14. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential for academic misconduct during the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance examination. A student approaches you, a proctor, and discreetly asks for a hint on a question they are struggling with, stating they are very anxious about not passing. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action? Option A. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any assistance. Explain that the examination must be completed independently according to the rules of Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA, and advise the student to do their best with their own knowledge. Option B. Provide a subtle hint to the student, believing that a small amount of help will not significantly impact the overall fairness of the examination and will alleviate their anxiety. Option C. Ignore the student's request and continue with your proctoring duties, hoping the student will not pursue the matter further. Option D. Immediately report the student to the examination committee for attempting to solicit unauthorized assistance without any further interaction. The correct answer is A. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any assistance. Explain that the examination must be completed independently according to the rules of Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA, and advise the student to do their best with their own knowledge. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the ethical obligation to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a university entrance exam, especially for a competitive institution like Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA, can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the student's aspirations with the institution's commitment to fair evaluation and the prevention of academic misconduct. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation without compromising ethical principles or the integrity of the examination process. The correct approach involves prioritizing academic integrity and adhering strictly to the examination rules and regulations of Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA. This means refusing to engage in any form of cheating or providing assistance that could be construed as such. The ethical justification for this approach is rooted in the principles of honesty, fairness, and respect for the rules governing the examination. Providing unauthorized assistance would violate these principles and undermine the credibility of the entrance exam. Furthermore, it would be a disservice to other candidates who are preparing honestly. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with the answers or hints. This action directly violates the examination regulations of Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA, which prohibit any form of academic dishonesty. Ethically, this constitutes a breach of trust and fairness, as it gives an unfair advantage to one student over others. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request and proceed with the examination as if nothing happened, without any form of intervention or guidance. While this avoids direct participation in cheating, it fails to uphold the ethical responsibility to address potential academic misconduct and guide the student towards ethical conduct. This inaction could be interpreted as tacit approval or a failure to act in the best interest of academic integrity. A third incorrect approach would be to report the student to the examination authorities without first attempting to understand the situation or offer guidance. While reporting misconduct is sometimes necessary, an immediate report without any attempt at informal resolution or understanding might be seen as overly punitive and not in line with a supportive academic environment. Depending on the specific internal guidelines of FAC FAMA regarding student conduct and reporting procedures, the professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the institution's academic integrity policies and examination rules. When faced with a situation that raises concerns about academic misconduct, a professional should first assess the situation and the potential ethical implications. This involves considering the principles of honesty, fairness, and responsibility. If a student is seeking to engage in or has engaged in unethical behavior, the professional should address the situation directly and ethically, which may involve explaining the rules, the consequences of misconduct, and guiding the student towards appropriate and ethical conduct. If the situation warrants, reporting to the appropriate authorities within Aldete Maria College FAC FAMA should be done in accordance with established procedures. Question 15. During the evaluation of an application for the Aldete Alves College FAC FAMA, an admissions committee member notices that a promising candidate, who otherwise meets most academic requirements, has a significant gap in their documented academic history, and a brief, emotionally charged note from the applicant mentioning unforeseen personal difficulties. The committee member feels a strong sense of empathy for the applicant's situation. What is the most ethically and procedurally sound course of action for the committee member to take? Option A. Advise the applicant to withdraw their application due to the incomplete academic record, suggesting they reapply once their documentation is fully resolved. Option B. Inform other committee members about the applicant's personal difficulties in an informal discussion to gauge their collective opinion on overlooking the academic gap. Option C. Initiate a formal inquiry through the designated college channels to request supplementary documentation or a formal explanation from the applicant regarding the academic gap, while ensuring all deliberations remain within the established admission policy framework. Option D. Recommend immediate admission for the applicant, citing the compelling personal circumstances described in the note, to allow them the opportunity to pursue their education. The correct answer is C. Initiate a formal inquiry through the designated college channels to request supplementary documentation or a formal explanation from the applicant regarding the academic gap, while ensuring all deliberations remain within the established admission policy framework. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's personal circumstances and the academic institution's established admission criteria. The admissions committee member must navigate the delicate balance of empathy and adherence to policy, ensuring fairness to all applicants while considering individual situations. The core of the challenge lies in maintaining objectivity and preventing personal bias from influencing the decision-making process, which could compromise the integrity of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective review of the applicant's file against the established admission criteria, seeking clarification on any ambiguities or missing information through appropriate channels within FAC FAMA established procedures. This upholds the principle of fairness and equal opportunity for all candidates by ensuring decisions are based on merit and documented qualifications, as per the Aldete Alves College's admission regulations. It also respects the established process for handling exceptional circumstances, which would typically involve a formal review or appeal mechanism if the initial application falls short. An incorrect approach would be to immediately grant admission based solely on the applicant's personal hardship, without a proper review of their academic qualifications against the stated entry requirements. This bypasses the established admission criteria and could be perceived as preferential treatment, undermining the fairness of the process for other applicants who met the requirements. It also fails to utilize the college's internal procedures for assessing exceptional cases, potentially setting a precedent that could be difficult to manage. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the application outright due to the perceived lack of immediate qualification, without exploring avenues for further information or consideration of mitigating factors, as outlined by FAC FAMA guidelines. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and empathy, potentially overlooking a deserving candidate who might have valid reasons for discrepancies in their application. It also fails to engage with the college's established processes for handling such situations. A third incorrect approach would be to discuss the applicant's personal situation with other committee members without their explicit consent, violating privacy and confidentiality principles. This action is unethical and could lead to reputational damage for both the individual and the institution. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Understanding and strictly adhering to the Aldete Alves College FAC FAMA admission policies and procedures. 2. Objectively assessing the applicant's file against all stated criteria. 3. Identifying any discrepancies or areas requiring further information. 4. Consulting internal college guidelines or supervisors regarding the appropriate procedure for handling exceptional circumstances or incomplete applications. 5. Maintaining strict confidentiality regarding applicant information. 6. Ensuring all decisions are documented and justifiable based on established criteria and procedures. Question 16. Risk assessment procedures indicate a student is approaching an instructor for assistance with an upcoming assignment, expressing significant anxiety about their ability to complete it and hinting at a desire for help that goes beyond clarification of concepts. The instructor suspects the student may be contemplating academic dishonesty. Option A. Clearly explain the college's policies on academic integrity, the definition and consequences of plagiarism, and then direct the student to the college's academic support services for legitimate assistance. Option B. Immediately report the student to the Academic Integrity Committee for suspected plagiarism without further discussion. Option C. Advise the student to seek help from external tutoring services that are not affiliated with the college, without specifying any particular service. Option D. Provide the student with a completed draft of the assignment to alleviate their anxiety and ensure they submit something. The correct answer is A. Clearly explain the college's policies on academic integrity, the definition and consequences of plagiarism, and then direct the student to the college's academic support services for legitimate assistance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for academic assistance and the ethical obligations of an academic institution and its representatives to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to achieve good grades, coupled with potential personal difficulties, can lead students to seek shortcuts, creating a dilemma for those in positions of authority. Careful judgment is required to balance empathy for the student's situation with the non-negotiable principles of fairness and academic honesty. The correct approach involves a measured response that prioritizes academic integrity while offering appropriate support. This entails clearly explaining the college's policies on academic misconduct, outlining the consequences of plagiarism, and directing the student to legitimate academic support resources. This approach upholds the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA commitment to a fair and honest academic environment, as mandated by its internal regulations and general principles of educational ethics. It respects the student's agency while reinforcing institutional standards. An incorrect approach that involves directly providing the student with answers or completing their assignment for them is ethically unacceptable and violates academic integrity policies. This action constitutes academic dishonesty, undermining the learning process and creating an unfair advantage. It also exposes the institution to reputational damage and potential regulatory scrutiny for failing to maintain academic standards. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the student's request and offer no guidance, is also professionally deficient. While it avoids direct complicity in academic misconduct, it fails to address the student's underlying issues and misses an opportunity to educate them on ethical academic practices. This can lead to the student seeking illicit help elsewhere or repeating the behavior, indicating a lack of proactive engagement from the institution. A third incorrect approach, which is to immediately report the student for academic misconduct without attempting to understand the situation or offer support, can be overly punitive and may not align with a progressive disciplinary framework. While reporting is sometimes necessary, a first step should often involve dialogue and education, especially if the student appears to be seeking guidance rather than intentionally attempting to deceive. This approach may alienate students and create an environment of fear rather than learning. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Active listening and understanding. Seek to understand the student's situation and the reasons behind their request. 2. Policy clarification. Clearly articulate the institution's policies on academic integrity and the consequences of misconduct. 3. Resource referral. Direct the student to appropriate academic support services, such as tutoring, writing centers, or counseling. 4. Documentation. Keep a record of the interaction and any advice given. 5. Escalation, if necessary. If the student persists in seeking illicit help, or if the situation warrants it, follow the established procedures for reporting academic misconduct. Question 17. Performance analysis shows a student has approached their instructor expressing dissatisfaction with a recent examination grade, requesting a review and suggesting specific points where they believe their answers were unfairly marked. The instructor suspects the student may be struggling with the course material, but is also concerned about setting a precedent for grade manipulation. What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct course of action for the instructor to take? Option A. Inform the student about the college's official grade appeal process and guide them on how to formally submit a request for review, ensuring all steps are followed according to Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA regulations. Option B. Offer to provide the student with specific answers and explanations for the examination questions they found difficult outside of the formal review process. Option C. Advise the student that their grade is final and no further discussion or review is possible, dismissing their concerns. Option D. Directly adjust the student's grade to a more satisfactory level to resolve the immediate issue and avoid further conflict. The correct answer is A. Inform the student about the college's official grade appeal process and guide them on how to formally submit a request for review, ensuring all steps are followed according to Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable outcomes. The student's request, while seemingly minor, touches upon the ethical responsibility of educators to maintain fair and objective assessment practices. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the desire to support a student with the imperative to uphold the integrity of the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA examination process. Careful judgment is required to avoid compromising ethical standards or creating a precedent that undermines the credibility of the institution. The correct approach involves a direct and transparent communication with the student, explaining the college's policy on grade appeals and the established procedures for addressing concerns about assessment. This upholds the principle of fairness by ensuring that any review is conducted according to established guidelines, accessible to all students. It also reinforces the importance of academic honesty and the student's responsibility to understand and adhere to these policies. This approach aligns with the ethical duty of educators to act with integrity and to foster an environment of trust and transparency within the academic community. An incorrect approach would be to directly alter the student's grade without following the established appeal process. This action would violate the principles of fairness and objectivity, as it bypasses the formal review mechanisms designed to ensure equitable treatment of all students. Could also be seen as a breach of academic integrity, potentially creating a perception of favoritism or undue influence. Furthermore, such an action might contravene specific internal regulations of Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA concerning grade management and appeals, which are designed to protect the validity of academic assessments. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request entirely. This would fail to address the student's concerns and could lead to feelings of being unheard or unfairly treated. While it avoids direct ethical compromise, it neglects the professional responsibility to engage with students and provide guidance on academic matters, potentially damaging the student-teacher relationship and the student's perception of the institution. A third incorrect approach would be to offer to help the student by providing answers to future assessments. This is ethically unsound as it directly undermines the purpose of assessment, which is to evaluate a student's independent learning and understanding. It constitutes academic dishonesty and would severely compromise the integrity of the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA educational programs. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the institution's policies and ethical guidelines. When faced with a student's request that appears to challenge these standards, the professional should first seek to understand the student's perspective and concerns. Then, they should clearly articulate the relevant policies and procedures, guiding the student through the appropriate channels for addressing their issues. Transparency, fairness, and adherence to established protocols are paramount in maintaining professional integrity and the credibility of the academic institution. Question 18. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential for candidates to seek unauthorized assistance during the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam. You are supervising the examination hall when a candidate approaches you discreetly and asks for a little hint on a question they are struggling with, stating they are very nervous and this exam is crucial for their future. Option A. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any assistance or hints, explaining that such actions would violate the exam regulations and compromise the integrity of the examination for all candidates. Advise the student to focus on the material they have studied and to do their best. Option B. Ignore the student's request and continue with your other supervisory duties, assuming they will either figure it out or move on. Option C. Immediately escort the student out of the examination hall and report them for attempted academic misconduct. Option D. Offer a subtle hint about the general topic of the question, suggesting they review a specific concept that might be relevant to alleviate their anxiety. Correct answer is A. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any assistance or hints, explaining that such actions would violate the exam regulations and compromise the integrity of the examination for all candidates. Advise the student to focus on the material they have studied and to do their best. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for academic assistance and the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead students to seek shortcuts, and it is the responsibility of those involved in the examination process to uphold fairness and prevent any form of academic misconduct. Careful judgment is required to balance support for students with the strict adherence to examination rules. The correct approach involves prioritizing the integrity of the examination process and adhering strictly to the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam regulations. This means refusing to provide any information that could be construed as assistance or an unfair advantage, and instead, directing the student to official channels for academic support or clarification of exam rules. This upholds the principle of fairness to all candidates and prevents any compromise of the examination's validity. An incorrect approach of providing hints or subtly guiding the student towards correct answers would constitute a breach of academic integrity and exam regulations. This action directly undermines the fairness of the assessment and could lead to disciplinary action against both the student and the individual providing assistance. It also sets a dangerous precedent, encouraging future attempts at academic dishonesty. Another incorrect approach, that of reporting the student immediately without any attempt at understanding or de-escalation, might be overly punitive and could miss an opportunity for a teachable moment. While upholding integrity is paramount, a measured response that first seeks to understand the student's intent and then clearly communicates the boundaries of acceptable behavior is often more professionally sound, provided it does not compromise the exam's integrity. A further incorrect approach, that of ignoring the student's request and continuing with other duties, demonstrates a dereliction of responsibility. Those involved in administering exams have a duty to ensure the examination environment is fair and that any potential breaches are addressed appropriately. Ignoring such a situation allows for the possibility of academic misconduct to go unchecked. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant exam regulations and ethical codes. When faced with a potential ethical dilemma, a professional should 1. Identify the core issue and the conflicting principles, e.g., student support vs. academic integrity. 2. Consult the relevant regulations and guidelines, in this case, Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam rules. 3. Consider the potential consequences of each possible action. 4. Choose the action that best upholds ethical principles and regulatory compliance, prioritizing fairness and integrity. 5. Document the situation and the action taken if necessary. Question 19. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential candidate for the Aldete Maria Alves College FAC FAMA entrance exam has approached a college representative seeking tips and past papers that might be very similar to the actual exam questions, expressing anxiety about their preparation. Option A. Provide the candidate with a set of recently used past exam papers, explaining that these are the best way to prepare and that the college wants all candidates to have a fair chance. Option B. Ignore the candidate's request, assuming they will either find legitimate study methods or attempt to cheat independently and focus on other admissions tasks. Option C. Immediately report the candidate to the Ministry of Education for attempting to solicit exam information without any prior internal discussion or guidance. Option D. Politely inform the candidate that the college does not provide specific past exam papers or tips that guarantee similarity to the current exam, but offer information on legitimate study materials and resources available through the college's library or official preparatory guides, while clearly stating the importance of academic integrity and the consequences of any form of cheating. The correct answer is D. Politely inform the candidate that the college does not provide specific past exam papers or tips that guarantee similarity to the current exam, but offer information on legitimate study materials and resources available through the college's library or official preparatory guides, while clearly stating the importance of academic integrity and the consequences of any form of cheating. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for academic assistance and the ethical obligation to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead students to seek shortcuts, and it is the responsibility of college representatives to navigate these situations ethically and in accordance with institutional guidelines. Careful judgment is required to balance support for students with the imperative to prevent academic misconduct. The correct approach involves a direct, transparent, and supportive response that clearly outlines the college's stance on academic integrity and offers legitimate resources. This approach upholds the principles of fairness and honesty, which are foundational to any educational institution. Specifically, it aligns with the Aldete Alves College FAC FAMA commitment to ethical admissions processes, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated on their own merit and that the integrity of the entrance examination is preserved. Providing information about legitimate study resources and clearly stating the consequences of academic dishonesty reinforces the college's values and deters misconduct. An incorrect approach that involves providing the student with unauthorized access to past exam questions or answers is a direct violation of academic integrity policies. This action would compromise the fairness of the entrance examination, creating an uneven playing field for other candidates. It also exposes the college to reputational damage and potential disciplinary action for facilitating academic dishonesty. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the student's request without any response, is also professionally unacceptable. While it avoids direct complicity in cheating, it fails to uphold the college's responsibility to guide and educate students on ethical conduct. This passive stance can be interpreted as a lack of commitment to academic integrity and may leave the student feeling unsupported or even implicitly encouraged to seek illicit means of preparation. A third incorrect approach, which is to report the student to external authorities without first addressing the situation internally and offering guidance, is overly punitive and may not be in line with the college's internal disciplinary procedures. While serious breaches of academic integrity may warrant escalation, the initial response should focus on education and adherence to institutional policies. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Recognizing the ethical dilemma. 2. Consulting institutional policies and guidelines regarding academic integrity and student conduct. 3. Responding to the student in a manner that is both supportive and firm, clearly articulating expectations and consequences. 4. Offering legitimate resources for academic preparation. 5. Documenting the interaction and the response. 6. Escalating the matter internally if the student persists in seeking or engaging in academic misconduct, following established procedures. Question 20. The control framework reveals that during the Aldete Alves College FAC FAMA entrance examination, a prospective student appears visibly distressed and is struggling significantly with the questions, repeatedly looking around as if seeking assistance. As an invigilator, what is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action? Option A. Politely inform the student that you cannot provide assistance during the exam and suggest they seek out the college's academic support services after the examination is concluded. Option B. Immediately halt the student's exam and report them for suspected cheating to the examination board without further inquiry. Option C. Ignore the student's distress and their behavior, continuing to monitor the exam without any intervention. As the primary focus is exam integrity, Option D. Discreetly offer the student subtle hints or direct answers to the questions they are struggling with to alleviate their distress and ensure they complete the exam. The correct answer is D. Discreetly offer the student subtle hints or direct answers to the questions they are struggling with to alleviate their distress and ensure they complete the exam. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the desire to assist a struggling student. The pressure to maintain high academic standards at Aldete Alves College FAC FAMA, as mandated by its internal regulations and broader educational guidelines, clashes with the ethical obligation to support student learning and well-being. Navigating this requires a careful balance, ensuring that any assistance provided does not compromise the fairness of the assessment process or the validity of the examination results. The integrity of the entrance exam is paramount to maintaining the college's reputation and ensuring that admitted students possess the foundational knowledge required for success. The correct approach involves a commitment to upholding the principles of academic honesty and fairness. This means recognizing the student's difficulties without offering direct assistance that could be construed as cheating or providing an unfair advantage. Instead, the focus should be on guiding the student towards legitimate academic support resources available through the college, such as tutoring services or academic advising. This aligns with the ethical duty of educators to foster a learning environment that values integrity and provides equitable opportunities for all students to succeed through their own efforts. The regulatory framework for educational institutions, including those like FAC/FAMA, typically emphasizes fair assessment practices and the prevention of academic misconduct. An incorrect approach of providing direct answers or hints to the student during the exam would be a severe ethical and regulatory failure. This action directly undermines the purpose of the entrance examination, which is to assess a candidate's independent knowledge and aptitude. It constitutes academic dishonesty, violating the trust placed in the examiner and the integrity of the admissions process. Such behavior could lead to disciplinary action against the examiner and potentially invalidate the student's application. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's distress and offer no support whatsoever. While this avoids direct complicity in cheating, it fails to uphold the ethical responsibility of an educator to guide and support students within appropriate boundaries. It can be perceived as a lack of empathy and may discourage students from seeking help when genuinely struggling, potentially leading to negative outcomes for the student and reflecting poorly on the college's commitment to student success. A third incorrect approach might be to report the student for potential cheating without first attempting to understand the situation or offer appropriate guidance. While vigilance against cheating is necessary, an immediate accusation without investigation or support can be detrimental to the student and may not reflect the full circumstances. A more measured response that prioritizes understanding and appropriate intervention is generally preferred. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the college's academic integrity policy and ethical guidelines. When faced with a student in distress during an exam, an educator should first assess the situation to determine if the distress is impacting their ability to perform or if there are signs of potential academic misconduct. If the distress is genuine and not related to cheating, the educator should offer appropriate, non-academic support, such as a brief break if permitted by exam rules, or direct the student to college resources for emotional or academic support after the exam. If there are concerns about academic misconduct, the educator should follow the college's established procedures for reporting and investigating such issues, ensuring fairness and due process for the student. The overarching principle is to uphold academic integrity while acting ethically and supportively within the defined regulatory and institutional framework.